I want to talk a little bit this evening about Genesis chapter 3. It's a pivotal chapter in the Bible. In Genesis chapter 1, there's the creation of the whole universe and the earth. In Genesis chapter 2, there's the creation of the Garden of Eden. The focus narrows a bit. This is why, of course, God goes from using the title Elohim to using his personal name, Yehovah. And also why a lot of things that are created in the first chapter are not created in the second. For example, there's no sun created in the second chapter. The sun is not created in the second chapter. The earth is just presumed to have been here in the second chapter. It's not created at all, but it is created in the first chapter. So people who tell you that there's two creation events in Genesis are just, I don't know. They just don't want to see it. But what I want to look at tonight is Genesis chapter 3. I want to read a little bit for you, and then we'll talk about it. Genesis 3:1. I'm reading from the ESV, by the way. Genesis 3:1 says, "Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, 'Did God actually say, you shall not eat from any tree in the garden?' And the woman said to the serpent, 'We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but God did say, you shall not eat the fruit that is in the tree, that is of the tree of the midst, in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.' But the serpent said to the woman, 'You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.'" Now let's stop there for just a minute, because something really important happens here, and we generally miss it. If you'll look at your screen, I'm going to scroll up a bit. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 2. And we're going to look at verse 15 here. Verse 15, 15, 16, 17. I just highlighted that for you. All right. "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, 'You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die.'" And what did God say? God said, "You shall not eat of the tree." Here we go. Let's get the highlight there. "You shall not eat." Kind of like Gandalf, only far more important. "You shall not eat. For on the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." But what does Eve say? Eve says, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden," but God said, "You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden." Highlight this here. "Neither shall you touch it." You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. What's going on here? God didn't say, don't touch it. God just said, you shall not eat. But Eve didn't exist when God said that. See, Eve isn't created for a few verses later. So God gives the commandment not to eat of the tree in verse 17, but in verse 22, or 21, I guess, "The Lord God caused the deep sleep to fall on the man. And while he slept, he took one of the ribs and closed the place up with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man." So this is where Eve comes into existence. Eve didn't hear God say, "You shall not eat from the tree." Where did Eve get her information? Eve got her information from Adam. What happened? Now, it's probably a good idea not to touch the tree, like I said before, but when we're quoting God, when we're telling people what God has said, we should probably do our best to be as accurate as possible, as precise as possible, because God's words are important. He doesn't waste any of them. Adam added to the commandment. Adam was probably talking to Eve, and he said, "Oh, by the way, we're not allowed to eat from that tree, and you probably shouldn't even touch it. Don't touch it. God said don't touch it." And I'm speculating here, of course, but um, this becomes a real problem later on when we start to tell other people what God has said. We start to teach our children the laws of God. We start to teach our children what is right and what is wrong, and we do like Adam did, and we add to the laws of God. We add to the laws of God when they're sufficient, when it's not necessary for us to add anything more. We do, and maybe we do it because we're trying to help, because we want things to be easier, we want to be even more clear than we were before, or maybe we do it out of an inflated sense of self-worth. Like, I know what God has said, and I know what God meant to say but didn't. Anyway, so God told Adam not to eat from the tree. Adam told Eve not to eat from the tree or touch it, and Satan said, "Did God actually say?" And Eve doubted, and in that moment of doubt, Eve ate. It's an important lesson to remember, I think. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. Let me know if you like this, by the way. If you do, if you like this kind of format, I'm just sort of, I finished playing Beat Saber for a little bit, and I came in here and I thought, no, let me talk to a camera. If you like this format, if you like what I'm doing here, click like, let me know, right? Maybe leave a comment, and I'd sure appreciate the encouragement. Thanks so much. God bless.